Folks, we've done this 151 straight times, and it just keeps getting better. I don't know how they do it. Steve Hellwagon, Bucknuts, 247 Sports, Tony Gerdeman, and Kevin Noon, Buckeye Scoop. How that place got to be so blessed, wow, it's just a wonder to me. Guys, how we doing today?
Doing great.
Doing great.
Blessed.
Awesome. Well, all the main movers and shakers on both sides of the ball, including Ryan Day himself, were at the podium yesterday. Steve, your thoughts about what was communicated?
Yeah, it was almost 90 minutes of briefings with the Ohio State head coach Ryan Day and the two coordinators, Jim Knowles on defense, Kevin Wilson on offense. And Ryan Day is always very guarded with what he had to say, never wants to highlight a single player because he says, I might leave somebody out, which is code for I don't want you to really know who's doing well or how they're doing it. Just that continue to know they're practicing football at Ohio State. They've been through 6 practices now this spring in hopes of bringing national glory back to Ohio State after a forgettable 2021 season, although it did culminate with a Rose Bowl win. Jim Knowles, very good in his half hour of his comments, covered so much ground about what they're doing, installing the new defense, how they're going about it, which players are starting to come on for them. So if you're an Ohio State fan and you really want to know what's going on with the defense, Jim Knowles, very candid in his comments, brand new, fresh out of the box defensive coordinator. We haven't ruined him yet with all of our bad questions. So he really had a lot of great things to say, I thought, yesterday, and talking about a lot of guys who are coming on. Jack Sawyer, particular defensive end, could be maybe even a young guy, Reed Carrico at linebacker. He's got a lot of guys across the board that he really likes. So I think he's finding the talent level within the defense is what it ought to be at Ohio State. Now it's just trying to figure out where those pieces go. And then for Kevin Wilson, he talked offensive line a good bit because that's one of the big stories this spring is the offensive line and how they're going to recover from losing Nicholas Petit-Frere and Thayer Munford and how they're going to fill in those spots. And sounds like they've got a real comer in Donovan Jackson, said he could play tackle or guard for Ohio State if need be. And I think that's a pretty good thing right there. So there were a lot of positives to it, a lot of good news, not much bad news, not much injury news, really. Nobody who it sounds like has been lost for any appreciable amount of time through the first, couple of weeks of spring ball. And you just want them to keep on that straight and narrow as they continue spring practice.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. It would take 3 shows to be able to go through everything that we heard and talk about it. So, one of the things that stood out to me is that we all love to talk about the Leo position. And for now, the position is there, but the name isn't. Leo is the king of the jungle, according to Jim Knowles. So it is the Jack position for the time being. Whether or not a king emerges and then the Leo regains his throne, so to speak, then we'll find out. But we certainly heard a lot of names of people that could fit into some of those roles. Jack Sawyer certainly being one of them. Guys like JJB, Javonte Jean-Baptiste getting a look there. They're really trying to find a spot for somebody like Paulie Naote. Talked about he may be a Sam when Ohio State faces teams running 12 personnel, a couple of tight ends out there, somebody like an Iowa, somebody like a Wisconsin, on the offensive side of the ball. A lot of talk about CJ Stroud's vision, a lot of talk about we haven't even really seen this guy's ceiling of what he's capable of doing. And, one other takeaway, just, not to get too long-winded on this, they're really hopeful to get Josh Proctor back. I mean, they said a lot of good things about Ronnie Hickman and some other guys, but they really want to get Josh Proctor back. They're hoping for a speedy and complete recovery as he's dealt with a couple of major injuries so far through his career.
Yeah, there's a lot of ground to cover. The Jim Knowles, I think he's going to be a media favorite because he gives good answers. He'll give you some long answers, and he will answer questions about players if you ask him about players. As Steve said, Ryan Day will sometimes, I don't want to name anybody. Jim Knowles will name everybody, and we'll go into detail on those guys. And he had a litany of guys that he was talking about. The Jack to the Leo to Jack thing was interesting, and it's something that you'll have to earn that title of Leo. I wrote today about the difficulties that Knowles has been having with the Ohio State offense and the difficulty that the Ohio State offense has been having with the defense, and really strong comments from both Knowles and Kevin Wilson about how far advanced CJ Stroud is right now in terms of vision and understanding. Knowles said part of the defense is deception, and CJ is always one step ahead of like the defense and knows where the ball needs to go with all of these different moving pieces. He compared it to when he was at Ole Miss and they had Eli Manning, and Eli Manning was able to diagnose and distribute the ball before any trouble could come his way. And Kevin Wilson said, similar things about CJ's vision, how I think he said it's with some guys, it's just innate and God-given. And he chalked that up, that same kind of trait up to CJ Stroud. So I think that was encouraging. The Kevin Wilson saying it's really challenging. The Ohio State offensive coaches have been challenged to keep up and to move the ball against this Ohio State defense 6 practices in. And Knowles said he wanted to have 2/3 of the defense in by the end of the spring. So they are now 40% of the way through spring. I don't know what 40% of 2/3 is, and I don't know that anybody here does. But let's just say there's still plenty more defense to come, and it's already making some strides.
It's about 27%. That'd be my guess.
Perfect. I'll believe you.
I think 40% of 2/3 would be about 40%. Yeah. So anyway,
We got to get you geared up, super fan. Game on.
folks, whether you've watched this for 151 consecutive weeks or this is your first week, these 3 deliver. So show them some love. Consider the super chat. And bring your comments and questions, hit the like button, do all those good things, and follow them on their respective platforms. So that's Tony at Buckeye Scoop, which also, Tony, you deliver your podcast on a daily basis. Where can people find that?
Yeah, the Buckeye Weekly podcast right now in the off season. We're about 2 or 3 times a week. Just dropped one on Tuesday discussing everything Jim Knowles had to say. Knowles talked for about 30 minutes. We talked for about 40 minutes talking about what Jim Knowles said. And then Thursday, we'll be dropping an episode about what Ryan Day and Kevin Wilson had to say. And you can find that at all of your podcast platforms.
And when you go to Buckeye Scoop, the only issue you're going to have is whether to go to Tony's latest or Kevin's latest. So besides that, it's a good place to be. So, Kevin, what else do you have available?
I recommend going to Tony's latest over line. At this point, I've been doing a lot of little housekeeping errands in terms of trying to get some stuff put together for some future stories coming through spring ball. We will have a live episode of the Big Me Kickoff available at all of your favorite podcasting destinations. In terms of content, it's just really a matter of kind of what we're getting. There's so much to dissect from what the head coach and the 2 coordinators said, on Tuesday. Don't have anything firmly written at this point, but lots to come.
Steve, you're all over the place. Where can we track you down?
Just bucknuts.com, Steve Hellwagon on Twitter, and just keeping busy. I got to watch a little bit of the practice yesterday morning. Not much to report from that, as always. Just kind of the early portion of practice before they do any scrimmaging. And attended the coaching interviews yesterday, and we'll be at a few player interviews. I'm not sure which position group we get tomorrow, but I'm sure it'll be a lot of fun tomorrow afternoon, sifting through all of our fresh video as we talk to the Buckeyes and get the latest of what's going on. And, we're getting down, just 3 weeks, I guess, from the spring game, April the 18th. At Ohio Stadium. So all that stuff coming up in the weeks ahead. Or not April 18, April 16. I'm sorry. Got my dates confused.
Steve, will stay with you on this one because it didn't take any kind of great insight to conjecture or project that Tanner McAllister was going to be an impact on this team. And that's not because he's ultra talented or anything like that. Not that he's not a really good athlete and player, but the obvious connection, he comes in with the 40 games played with Jim Knowles' defense and comes in and he can help coach the defense and be a mentor to his teammates. But now we're seeing it apparently come to fruition that he has made an impact immediately. He's a difference maker, and he may turn out to be just, I don't know how to categorize him, but kind of a special impact player on this team.
Yeah, that's what it seems like. It obviously played in Coach Knowles' defense at Oklahoma State, and Coach Knowles kind of regards him as a player coach on the field. That's what Ryan Day said as well. So I think the head coach is signing on to this McAllister experiment with him at safety for the Buckeyes, but they've got other guys obviously who are going to be there, like Court Williams and Ronnie Hickman, Josh Proctor, if he ever gets healthy again. That's 4 pretty good safeties for 3 spots, and how they sort through that remains to be seen. There's other guys that will also be in that battle as the season wears on. Some of the younger guys that are starting to come on as well, but it seems right now that Tanner McAllister has the trust of the coaching staff, particularly Jim Knowles, his proxy, his sponsor, who brought him over from Oklahoma State, and so we'll see how this all plays out. I think again, you're interested in seeing some 11-on-11 spring game, and if we're able to go, there's a student appreciation practice on Saturday that we might be able to attend and be able to watch a little bit of some scrimmage situations there potentially. And then we'll have a little better idea of how it's all going to fit together and how they're going to use these guys. But I'm interested to see how it all goes. And, they're installing the new defense, and to have people who've played in that defense, at least one guy who understands it, that's tremendous. To have him out on the field to kind of keep everybody pointed in the right direction.
Yeah, I expect Tanner McAllister to stay at that nickel spot, which is what he played at Oklahoma State. Jim Knowles has said he's done well there, and he understands the defense. He's a coach on the field. The interesting thing for me is going to be what happens when Josh Proctor comes back, because right now Ronnie Hickman is the free safety, the field safety. They've got Court Williams as the boundary safety. Josh Proctor is seen, in my eyes, as more of a free safety, which is what Ronnie Hickman is playing right now. And Jim Knowles has been over the top in love with what he has said of Ronnie Hickman and what he's seen from Ronnie Hickman. So if Court Williams elevates his play, do they end up having a rotation at safety there with those 2 back guys? I think Tanner McAllister, the other guys working at nickel right now are Cameron Martinez and Legend Cavazos, who moved over from corner. But I think they're feeling pretty good about safety right now. Knowles did say that they have to continue to work with Court Williams on his pass coverage and what happens when he gets matched up with receivers. Obviously, he's a bigger safety, pushing about 220 pounds. But yeah, I think Tanner McAllister, he wasn't flawless at Oklahoma State. So I wonder what happens when everybody else catches up with him, because right now he's way out ahead in terms of understanding the defense. And you would hope that he would be able to keep that lead, being a very talented player, but also understanding things and not getting caught from behind by a guy like a Cameron Martinez, who is just learning this defense and getting caught from behind by, say, like August or September, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, certainly they have a lot of guys at certain positions. I mean, granted, they are 5 over the 85 technically. I mean, we haven't had the summer enrollees come on campus yet, but we have guys that we're not even talking about. Lathan Ransom, who ended up getting injured in the Rose Bowl. I mean, where does he fit into the mix? I mean, if that, is that a 8-month injury? Is that a 12-month injury? If it's a 12-month injury, that kind of pretty much takes him out for the year. But you have to wonder what's going to happen there. Certainly a lot of good talk about Tanner McAllister. He loses his black stripe this week. He's way out ahead, but as Tony said, I mean, it wasn't a case of where, I mean, he wasn't an All-American. I mean, he still has room to go on his journey as well. certainly one of the best things he has going is understanding the system. And when you hear terms like, oh, he's like a coach out there, you kind of know what some of the feelings are at that point, that they certainly want to try and have him out there. But, nothing is given and everything is earned, and he's going to have to continue to push and try and keep guys from closing in as they get more comfortable and familiar with the system.
Kevin, Hummus Hero believes that you're the best candidate to go Will Smith on Jim Harbaugh.
I'm probably the best candidate to go Will Smith on Tony Gerdeman, but probably not Jim Harbaugh. I don't, I value my job way too much to go up there and slap a coach or anything like that. And he's such a strange duck. I don't know what the heck he would do. I know Tony's reaction. He'd just laugh it off. I mean, he's good-natured. Jim Harbaugh, on the other hand, I'm not so sure about, but I appreciate it, Hummus Hero. But
Coward.
Absolutely. My arm's been really sore. I don't know if I can fight my way out of it.
Give us something to talk about, that's for sure. All right, B Devil wants a progress report on the backup quarterbacks.
Okay. Has anybody seen anything more other than that they're extremely limber and stretching?
They take handoffs or they take snaps and hand the ball off extremely well. We really don't get to watch any of the 11-on-11, so hard for us to have any kind of firsthand observations. I will say that we had a note today in one of our columns from somebody who has seen a little bit of practice and said that McCord is actually making really good progress, and they wouldn't hesitate to put him in a game and he could lead the offense down the field. So that is the latest intelligence I have on the backup quarterback situation. Devin Brown, just 6 practices in, he's drinking water out of a fire hose right now, just trying to get the snap and get the ball where it's supposed to go. And so, I don't think you do expect anything out of him at this early stage. And he probably isn't likely. He'll probably play in the spring game, but I don't think you look for him to be a difference maker, 6 practices in. So to me, I thought that was good news on McCord, and obviously Brown just kind of, going up the hill on the beast right now, one click at a time, and he'll get there eventually.
I think the thing to keep in mind is Kyle McCord is way beyond in terms of experience where CJ Stroud was at this point last year. Kyle McCord got a start against Akron. He's played, and I have no doubts that if he was the quarterback this year, Ohio State would still have the best offense in the Big Ten and one of the best offenses in the country. And Devin Brown is a true freshman and will take some time, but I think they're just fine with their 2 guys. And as I've asked other people before, if there was an open draft of quarterbacks in the Big Ten, Kyle McCord's not going to last long. Like he's going to be one of the top 5 picks in the Big Ten, in my opinion. And so Ohio State, I think, is in good hands there.
All right, Kyle McCord is better than the projected Illinois starter. Okay.
Who is the Rutgers starter and the Northwestern starter and Illinois and
with a few reps, maybe he passes Talia and guys like that as well.
Yeah. Better than most.
Sue's here. Good to see you, Sue. Bringing her question about Cameron Babb's knee injury and what we know about it.
He looked good yesterday in practice, catching balls in warm-ups. So going up and, catching the ball in the air and running patterns, and seems to be like he hadn't had any setbacks yet through 6 practices. I don't know how much 11-on-11 full contact he's done. Doesn't seem like it would be something that he'd want to get him involved too much in that just now. Get him to the season and then see maybe where he is with that. But he'll have his chance against contact at some point. Otherwise, he can't play. But to me, it looks like he's doing just fine so far. So just, keep him in your prayers and your thoughts that he can stay upright. He's had a lot of setbacks in his time at Ohio State and even back in high school. So he's a guy everybody's rooting for. He's got some physical attributes, and, he's like the $6 million man. They can rebuild him. So, just hope for the best.
Yakov 22's here. And I got to say, if you don't play a skill position in the NFL and you're not Aaron Donald or J.J. Watt, it is in the moment difficult to gauge Hall of Famers. But Cam Hayward is putting together that kind of career. He has been a monster, and he has been a consistent performer, of course, for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But on that note, Yakov, Malcolm Jenkins, he would be the story of the day. He's announced his retirement, and he's another guy. Wow, he won a Super Bowl with the Saints in year number 1. Later, he went to the Eagles, won a Super Bowl. And Tony, Malcolm Jenkins, a pretty stellar career in the NFL after 4 fine seasons with the Buckeyes.
Yeah, first I would say regarding Cam Hayward, I definitely an argument there. Last year was a remarkable year for him. He had like 89 tackles and double-digit sacks and tackles for loss. So I think he could eventually get there. Malcolm Jenkins, as you said, you can say the same thing for. He is – I don't know who the 4th member of my Ohio State cornerback Mount Rushmore is, but I know 3 of them are Sean Springs, Antoine Winfield, and Malcolm Jenkins. And if you want to put Chris Gamble or Marshawn Lattimore, Denzel Ward, I think Nate Clements is underrated and gets quite a bit of abuse from Buckeye fans because of 1 or 2 moments. But Malcolm Jenkins, and I go back to one of the first stories I ever heard about him was at an Ohio State camp where he would do his rep, and then he would come back and cut in line to get another rep as he was trying to earn his offer from Ohio State. So he was cutting in line to go against more guys and to show the coaches what he could do. And that's the mentality that he has taken with him all the way through beyond football into social issues and things like that. And he's always been just performed very well in anything he's done, and making the move to safety in the NFL, he succeeded there. But started a few games, maybe 5 games as a true freshman, was like a nickelback, and then started some games, I think, when Tyler Everett got injured, and then, was just in the lineup for the rest of his career at that point. And great tackler, great in coverage, big play guy, team leader. I don't know what else you could have asked for from him.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, those are the guys you want to look for in the camps, the guys that want to take reps. We see guys so often that will go through, take a couple reps, maybe lose one, and then just kind of hang out with the guys because they don't want to get exposed anymore. When you're out there trying to earn that offer, that's what you want to do. And he's certainly carried that type of attitude ever since. I mean, he's just one of those guys. You knew very early on that we all joke, oh, we're all going to be working for him someday. He's certainly one of those guys that we're all going to be working for. Kudos to a stellar career, and whatever that next chapter may be, I'm sure he'll stay very active.
Yep, great Buckeye. Obviously came from New Jersey and really shook things up. First year at Ohio State in 2005, came right in and was – not necessarily a starter. I think they had some other corners like Ashton Yabodi and some other people at the time, but he played quite a bit, and then obviously started the next 3 years and All-American, and did a lot of great things. Was a huge leader at Ohio State, and I was looking for the clip today from the 2008 Ohio State-Wisconsin game up there where they did jump around at the end of the 3rd quarter, and he went like out to the hash marks, took his helmet off, and was dancing and jumping around and everything. And I think that really kind of set the tone for his team, that they were in this nut cruncher type game at Wisconsin, but the whole stadium is going nuts. And why can't Ohio State embrace it? And their guys got into it, and they went on, and Terrell Pryor scored a touchdown at the very end of the game. And they won that game. And it was a big part of them winning Big Ten that year. So I remember that moment. I mean, he was dancing and laughing and having a great time, and just kind of said, hey, this is a moment for all of us college kids to enjoy, as opposed to, standing there, are we going to go cover 2 or cover 3 on this play? against Wisconsin, who couldn't throw it in the ocean even if they tried, and kind of took all of the hypertension out of the moment for his team, and said, hey, it's just football. Let's go play football and beat these guys. And had a big smile on his face, and his team pulled out the big win.
Yeah, I just tweeted a video of that like an hour ago. Found his career highlights at OSU on YouTube, and at like the 44-second mark is a clip of the jump around where he's just he's going crazy. And to me, that's the first time I ever saw the opponents do that. And now it's kind of become, I don't know, not necessarily the norm, but you see it more and more from other teams where they also embrace it and have some fun. So yeah, always a trendsetter, Malcolm Jenkins.
All right. I guess I've got another reason to go to Tony Gerdeman's Twitter. Okay. Check that out today. Good stuff. Back to the chat. Back to more questions. David Greenshield's here to ask at the tight end position. Did you guys see Cade Stover and G. Scott splitting time at tight end?
Yeah, I'll go.
Royer in there too. I mean, I don't know if we necessarily have anybody that has separated themselves. I mean, obviously, a lot of conversation during the pressers about Cade Stover on his fourth position change or whatever it may be. It's not something of where Ryan Day went to him or Kevin Wilson went to him. It was something that Cade Stover came out and said that this is what I want to do, and you have to have the buy-in there. If you don't have the buy-in there, and if you're just doing it just to go through the motions, you're not going to be successful. But everything we've seen out of Cade Stover, highly motivated young man, I think he'll do well there. But as for the other position, I mean, G. Scott's still about 233. They'd like to get about 5 more pounds on him. I think they might like to get 10 more pounds on him, to be quite honest. I think Joe Royer is a guy that could still very much be in the mix. They're not going to run a lot of 12, it sounds like. There will be times where they may need to run some 12, but when you have the receivers that you have, I mean, you don't necessarily want to be taking them off the field to have 2 tight ends out there. So, and I know that the question wasn't insinuating running 2 tight sets. It's just, will they be splitting time? But, if you're not putting 2 tights out there, tight end reps are going to become even that much more valuable because of what the offense may end up looking like. I don't know if I have G. Scott Jr. as my number 2 tight end right now at this point, but I'm not sure who I have as my number 2 tight end at this point.
Yeah, I think the whole thing is really interesting to kind of keep tabs on. Cade Stover was going to start the spring at linebacker and has been moved back to tight end. First of all, they're only going to play 2 linebackers most of the time, and they've got about 7 or 8 really good linebackers. So, really good, I guess, being a relative term. But, you think about all the guys, all the bodies they have there with Tommy Eichenberg and Steel Chambers and Taraji P. Mitchell and everybody else they've got there. Reed Carrico referenced him a little bit ago. There's 4 right there. And there's more, the freshmen that just showed up with Powers and Hicks and everybody else. It's an embarrassment of riches. They don't need Cade Stover at linebacker. So is it his best position to go play in the National Football League? Is he a future professional defensive football player? He could well be. He may even still play some reps on defense at Ohio State. Who knows? But tight end, they don't have anybody who's proven. You got Mitch Rossi, who's sitting out this spring, primarily a blocking back, not really a pass catcher. G. Scott, who just has kind of struggled to get on the field in 2 years. It's his time. He's up to 233 pounds, is what Coach Wilson said yesterday. Joe Royer, who's up to 239 pounds now. He's also in that mix. So those are your 4 tight ends: Rossi, Scott, Royer, and Stover.
And you have Sam Hart too. Don't forget
Sam Hart as well. So I just look at it and I just think, they're going to play the guys who help them in given situations. If it's a run situation, if it's a pass situation, red zone, short yardage, goal line, maybe 2-3 tight ends. You just don't know. So I don't worry about it. Tight end is they're going to throw for about 5,000 yards, and about 400 or 500 of it's going to go to the tight end, if that much, maybe 300. I mean, they just don't throw the tight end. So it's just a blocking position in this offense. Fields didn't throw to the tight end much. Stroud never threw the tight end, and he had Jeremy Ruckert. I mean, what? None of these guys are Jeremy Ruckert. I can guarantee you that. So, I mean, you tell me, guys. Maybe next year one of them will be at that level, but going into 2022, I don't see anybody that's on that level. I mean, so I'm not going to lose a lot of sleep over who's playing tight end.
And to answer other follow-up questions that may be coming, yes, they do need to have a tight end on the field. It helps in the run game. And if you don't have that tight end, as Kevin Wilson was explaining, then you need your quarterback to run the ball some and to negate one of the blockers with the zone read. And obviously they don't, even though CJ Stroud can do that, they don't want him doing that. Having the tight end in there allows you to be more multiple, and it helps with the running game. And so I think it just comes down to what are they trying to do and accomplish with, each successive drive or whatever. And you plug the guys in there that can do that, but you don't want to become too predictable. So that's why you're trying to make these guys as well-rounded as possible. And I know we look at G. Scott as this guy who probably more of a flex. I think now he's moving to the point where he can play on the line. And Kevin Wilson said he's maybe the best technical fundamental blockers in the group. He's just not as big and strong as some of the other guys, but he's working to get there. I think the 12 personnel, I think for the most part, I would expect Mitch Rossi to be the 12 of that, because he can do some different things, being that H-back, fullback type. I don't know how often we'll see Cade Stover and G. Scott together, or Joe Royer and G. Scott together, things like that. And I don't know, maybe together they complete one full tight end and allow you to do some stuff if they're playing next to each other. But I think that Rossi was probably more the 12 guy at this point. But this is 6 practices in. They're hoping they can get to the point where they can play any of these 4 guys, and we'll see what Bennett Christian does, the true freshman tight end, who is the biggest of them all in terms of height anyway, and see where they go from there. But as Steve said, it's a blocking position. They need it. And if he can also catch, then that's a plus, but it's not going to make them or break them if they have a guy who is only Luke Farrell.
I'd rather be throwing to Julian Fleming than a tight end. I mean, if I'm out there looking for bigger bodies or whatever, there are other options of people that it is their job to catch passes, and that's really, I mean, yeah, they have to block. Everybody's got to block, but I'm not going to get too caught up on tight end production numbers in terms of receptions and yards. I'm more concerned about, if you need to use them as a third down outlet type of situation, fine, great, or whatever, but they're not going to be the focal point of the offense by any stretch of the imagination. If that's what you want, there's this team, it's called Iowa. That's kind of their thing.
Go back to Jim Tressel when he was asked, why don't you throw to the tight ends more? And he would say, because when we throw to the tight ends, we're not throwing to Ted Ginn, we're not throwing to Santonio Holmes, we're not throwing to Anthony Gonzalez. It's like, okay, you make a very good point, Senator.
Yeah, Athlons has Bennett Christian listed as one of the top 5 newcomers for Ohio State.
I think there's just so much
because of the void at the tight end position, not because he's ultra talented.
There's a void, but there's also levels that he has to overcome. I mean, there's 5 other guys in front of him. So now I've said similar things about Bennett Christian, in that he could become maybe the guy to be that number 2 tight end by September. But I don't know. I'd have to look and see and kind of rank where they are, and maybe that is a good material starter there down the road. But yeah, that's an interesting thought for sure.
Kevin, is AJ Hoffler on your radar, the 6'5", 245 defensive lineman out of Atlanta? Crystal ball's going the Ohio State direction.
I don't like to call my shot that often. This is a win, not if situation. I think he's got a birthday coming up or something where some news could maybe happen around there. I like him a lot. I'm not going to sit there and say that he's a top 25 national surefire 5-star type of guy, but I think he's the type of guy that could flourish within the Ohio State system. I think he's got a lot of skills, a lot of tools. He comes out of a really great program at Woodward Academy out there in Atlanta. So I think that he could be a solid pickup, and it's a matter of when and not if. I mean, it would take a major misstep by Ohio State for that one not to happen.
But why no Georgia offer? Is this one of those things like they want to see? Is this an Ohio kid type of thing where you have to slow play them a little bit because you're not quite sure? Whereas the out of state teams like Ohio State going to Georgia, you have to put the full press on if you want that kid to be involved.
You have to be ready. If in-state kids, if you're the flagship school, you have to be ready to accept the commitment. If you offer a kid and he's like, all right, I'm in. Oh, just kidding. Let's kind of see this through a little bit, especially somewhere like Woodward Academy. I mean, Elijah Holyfield, former Georgia running back, came out of there. I mean, Ohio State has recruited through there a lot. So I've been to that school a couple of times. They have nicer weight room facilities than a lot of schools in the Big Ten. I mean, this is a very nice place where a lot of talent comes through. Atlanta just seems to continue with its population boom. So, you're going to end up with some dudes there. You don't jerk that kid around. You jerk that kid around, it's like, oh, just kidding. And then there are bad feelings at that point. I mean, just another in-state kid. Really took until the last minute for Georgia to really be on board with Kristen Miller, who could have ended up at Ohio State. Georgia finally says, all right, no, we're serious here. And it was kind of a formality at that point. So, very much what you said there, Tony.
Yep. Hoffler, 6'5", 245, ranked, I think it said number 251 in the 247 composite. So number 39 defensive lineman and number 26 in Georgia. So we're not talking about a five-star guy, but we are talking about a guy that has got the kind of growth potential at 245 pounds that you could put on 25 pounds on his 6'5" frame and not even know it. So to me, this is a guy worth getting in on the ground floor, it would appear.
Our guy Ferris here is a Michigan fan, and he's asking about CJ Stroud. Now, of course, CJ Stroud got to a place at the end of 2021 where I don't know that anything more could be asked of the guy. Certainly had a couple hiccups the first few weeks, but I would consider them minor hiccups and, of course, understandable at that stage of his development. Is there anything left on the table for, it's a constant, Tom Brady's looking to improve from day to day, of course. That should be the mindset, but what would be the areas in which we could expect him to improve? I'm thinking when there's 20 yards of green grass in front of you, can you just take off and get 12 yards? That would be my suggestion. But besides that, I'm at a bit of a loss.
I mean, there are things, you don't want to stare guys down. I mean, I think at some points that maybe he locked in on certain guys a little too much in terms of going through his progressions. A lot of people wanted to say that a system flaw for Ohio State was that their guys didn't go through progression. So, I think that certain decision-making type of things. Sometimes there are certain games where it might take CJ Stroud a minute to kind of heat up or whatnot. It just kind of goes par for the course with the position. You don't know until you know if somebody's going to move forward, step back, or just kind of maintain. But, I think that the belief of everybody coming out of the program is there's still a lot of chicken on the bone with Stroud in terms of his growth.
Yeah, Kevin Wilson was very high on him on Tuesday, talking about he's only begun. He's still got a lot of room to grow, and we already know how good he is currently. And so you had Jim Knowles evoke Eli Manning. Kevin Wilson mentioned Drew Brees in terms of the great ones who are just always working, wanting to get better. Said similar things about CJ Stroud. I thought it was interesting. He just dropped this in, and I think maybe some people missed. I think Kevin Wilson was asked about that last touchdown pass to Jackson Smith and Jigba in the Rose Bowl that dropped over the right shoulder and Jackson caught, and Kevin Wilson was like, yeah, he threw two of those today in practice. And it's just like, now this is the norm for CJ Stroud. It's like, oh yeah, that's old hat. That's nothing. You should see what he's doing now. And, yeah, exactly. And so that's that's what Ohio State has at quarterback, and the NFL really was impressed with what they saw in the pro day, and now he's going to be competing to be the number 1 overall pick, just depending on what teams need at that spot, whoever goes ahead and gets that spot. But yeah, I don't see like a redshirt sophomore slump coming. That's not really what anybody has done at Ohio State. And really that the redshirt sophomore is usually where, Dwayne Haskins exploded. CJ Stroud will be, I think he's going to be better than he was last year. Now, better and being more free can sometimes lead to more interceptions. And so I wouldn't be surprised if that happens as well. But yeah, I'm not expecting any step back. I'm only expecting movement forward, especially as the running game continues to improve for the Buckeyes as well.
Yeah, I think that the people around him will kind of help determine how great he plays this year. And that does give you a little bit of pause because Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave, who are 2 amazing security blankets for him, aren't there anymore. So what you really need is for Marvin Harrison and Emeka Egbuka, Julian Fleming, Cameron Babb, Jaden Ballard, the tight ends, Travion Henderson, everyone around him that he gets the ball to step up and flourish. And, I mean, we know what Jackson Smith-Njigba is capable of, but it's going to take more than just him for Stroud to break some records this year. So, it's going to take a village. So that's the first thing. Second thing is that offensive line that we touched on. Whippler's back at center, and I thought he was solid, steady. He was fine last year. DeJuan Jones is back at right tackle. They're taking Paris Johnson from, I think it was right guard, and putting him over at left tackle, which could be a natural position for him. He could play guard or tackle perhaps in the NFL. You got Matthew Jones, who has played some on the offensive line at Ohio State, who slots in then at one of the guard positions, and Donovan Jackson, who is a very talented sophomore, who was a national top 20 prospect last year, got to play some as kind of a blocking back a little bit and a backup offensive lineman. He's getting an opportunity at the other guard spot. And from what we hear so far, they love Donovan Jackson. So it's going to be a little bit of a different offensive line because you had 4 offensive tackles and Luke Whippler. So your pass protection was awesome last year. And this year you're going to have more of a traditional look with 2 guards, 2 tackles, and Whippler. Does the pass protection suffer a little bit? Is the run blocking better? We don't know. Put it into production and we'll find out in the fall, I guess. That's the only way you'll ever know. But to my way of thinking, Stroud is going to have a huge, huge year. And again, some of it dependent on how some of the young guys who are thrust into positions, full-time positions for the very first time, how they take to those positions. You like what you've seen so far of Marvin Harrison, Matthew Jones, and some of the other guys, but are they going to do it on an every down, every day, every game basis? That's what it takes.
Yeah, it seems like they're very high on the starting 5 of the offensive line. And I think it's interesting that Donovan Jackson is at left guard. And as Kevin Wilson said, if something happens, they can move him to left tackle. So that, to me, that tells me that Donovan Jackson is Ohio State's next left tackle when Paris Johnson is gone. And that's a guy who is very athletic. They've talked about his skill and his ability and his mobility. So I think they feel good about those 5. It's just finding 6 and 7 and 8 that they need some work on this spring. And it's unfortunate that Josh Fryer is out this spring because he would be 6 or 7, I think.
Yeah, you need guys like Enoch Mahi, guys like that have been in the program a couple of years. We certainly have heard some names of guys that don't get talked about as much, the Jacob Jameses of the world, the Grant Toutants. Those are guys that, again, not to belabor the point that I mentioned earlier, they're at 90. I mean, there are going to be some guys that are going to have to move on. And, I mean, it's not a matter of, well, we would like to have some guys move on. No, guys are going to have to move on. And they're going to have to be very real discussions. And if you're not going to be able to get it done, you're going to have to go find somewhere that you're going to be able to. So, getting 6, 7, 8, 9 is going to be something that's imperative. And, one of the first tests for a new offensive line coach.
Once again, near the end of the show, we've got the most people on the line. So keep in mind, next Wednesday, most likely, is going to be 1:30 Eastern. So be here on time. Check out the show from the beginning. If you can't, then obviously check out the replay. It should be posted here in about 15 minutes after we're done. Sue's asking a question about the most impactful or what freshman's going to get the most playing time. I know with the national championship in sight as being the ultimate goal, and it is every year, but this team looking like it's prepared to make a serious run, that one of those two, or maybe both of those two, 5-star linebacker / safety, when you talk Sonny Styles and CJ Hicks, that could be the key to the whole thing in terms of another, for the first time in how long, a playmaker at linebacker, a star. And I hate to put that much on two guys that have never played it down at this level, but freshmen break out and make it happen all over the country. So those are the two guys I'm looking at.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the roster here, and, there are maybe about a dozen or so true freshmen that are in the fold and practicing this spring already. CJ Hicks is obviously one of them. Gabe Powers is another one at linebacker. Maybe they mix in on special teams. And then depending on how the defense does, maybe more on defense at linebacker as the season wears on, if they prove to be the best of the lot. But I think that's a lot for them to prove in a short period of time. Some of the other true freshmen, as I look at this, Caleb Burton at wide receiver, he's interesting. Kyon Grays as well. Of course, Devin Brown kind of stuck at number 3 on the depth chart. We touched on him a little bit earlier at quarterback. Will he get to play, or will he get to play much at all? I don't know. Hard to say. Jair Brown at cornerback is kind of an interesting guy. He could be a special teams type guy because he's an amazing athlete, Jair Brown. He's got some God-given athletic ability. Kai Stokes at safety. As we said, crowded house at safety. I would tend to doubt he's going to play much on defense as a true freshman. George Fitzpatrick on the offensive line. No, very unlikely. Bennett Christian at tight end. No, very unlikely. Caden Curry, defensive end. Listed 6'3", 250. I think it depends, again, what you get out of the guys who are coming back. We saw Sawyer and Tuimoloau got to play a little bit last year, but that was out of necessity as much as it was that they had moved past people. There wasn't anybody to move past. They were like in the 2 deep by default because Tyler Friday was injured and Javonte Jean-Baptiste is spotty and, just kind of the way it worked. Derek Smith wasn't, it could go, more than a X number of plays a game. So it was just a case where those guys, they didn't have anybody else to play. Now, does that apply to Caden Curry this year? I don't know. But I think those 2 linebackers are probably the cream of the crop. Sonny Styles is not at Ohio State right now. He is finishing up the spring semester, just helped lead his high school basketball team at Pickerington Central to a state championship at the end of his junior year. And, of course, he's graduating at the end of his junior year and will be at Ohio State beginning in early June, enrolling for summer semester and going through the summer program. And maybe he can be like JT Tuimoloau last year, just have an abbreviated run-up to his helping the team in the fall. We'll see how that all plays out. But to my way of thinking about it, I mean, it's great some of these guys are in the fold for spring, their freshman year, but opportunities to play a whole lot. It's a deep team, it's a deep and veteran team in many regards. Say what you will. And I don't know that there's a ton of opportunities for true freshmen.
Yeah, I mean, you really don't want to sit there and be relying on true freshmen if at all possible. I do agree with Steve, especially with somebody like CJ Hicks. Where does he fit in? I mean, he's just so talented that you kind of have to find a way. But if you're running a 4-2-5, and his position is in the 2, I mean, is he going to be able to work his way in there more than as a special teams kind of role type of player? Gabe Powers is somebody who could maybe end up sliding down, but his first look's going to be at linebacker. We did learn, I mean, we'd already kind of heard it that Sonny Styles will get his first look at safety. Again, that's kind of a jammed up area. I think that maybe one of the receivers, we find somebody who just gets to play in one of his 4 games in that red shirt window. One of the receivers proves too talented to take off the field, and he ends up worming his way into the mix. I think that's probably one of the more likely positions, but they're in a good spot where they're not going to have to really rely a lot on young guys knocking on particle board at this point of the year. But, things happen.
Yeah, I think they're deep in so many spots. It's hard to say, oh, this guy is obviously the freshman who will play the most. I think you can see CJ Hicks shine on special teams and maybe kick coverage, something like that. It's a hard question because I don't know that necessarily anybody jumps out. Now, on my podcast a few weeks back, we did like a black stripe draft to see which freshmen would have their black stripes removed first, and we did a snake draft, and I went with Caden Curry first, and then I think then it was CJ Hicks second, and so I think with Caden Curry again, he's very coachable, he's very tenacious, all of these things that coaches like when it comes to getting your black stripe removed, but it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to play because you've got Zach Harry, and Jim Knowles talked about him playing at the jack position, getting a look there. Well, you've got Jack Sawyer, you've got Mitchell Melton, who we haven't talked about yet, who is really standing out. You've got Javante Jean-Baptiste, who is a 5th-year senior now, so like he's going to be involved. Paula now Teote getting a little bit of a look there as he's moving back and forth between that and Sam as Jim Knowles installs some 4-3, which has to exist in the Big Ten. But I think Caden Curry is going to be great. It's just a matter of opportunity for all of these guys. And I think there's going to be a lot of redshirting. And then similar to that 2014 team that was led by a bunch of redshirt freshmen and second-year guys, you could see that again next year as they break in a redshirt sophomore quarterback in Kyle McCord.
Number of questions in the live chat to deal with topics we've already hit on. So understand if you're in here late, we probably hit on your topic. So go back and watch what you missed. Video should post about 15 minutes after we get done here, including this question to a certain extent that NBA fans throwing out there. So you guys covered various aspects of the defense and the scheme involved. So if there's anything else you guys have to add about why Ohio State's base defense has been a 4-3, considering the spread propensity of modern college football, having an extra linebacker on the field in place of a nickel.
I think they did that in 2019, and they've done it back in Jim Tressel's time, except in 2019, Pete Werner ends up taking over that spot. So you've just got a linebacker playing as that nickel. And then also it comes down to they have not had a lot of defensive backs. And that was the problem in 2020. They just didn't have guys who could play. And that's why they had to play 4 linebackers. And so a lot of it is dictated by you have to play your best 11. And if the defensive backs aren't part of that, you gotta put the guys out there that you can trust. Now they've got a lot more defensive backs, so it makes this a lot easier for them to do.
Yeah, if you play a 4-3, I mean, you sit there, you put your corners on an island, you press man, and you go and you take away the run, and you say, okay, if you're going to beat us, you're going to beat us up top. And if you have the corners, if you have a Jeffrey Okudah out there, fantastic. I mean, you're going to win a lot more than you're going to lose in that instance. But they're not going to be running 4-3 now. They're going to be in a 4-2-5, and you're kind of getting your wish there.
Yeah, I've just thought it was part and parcel of the Big Ten, where you got to be able to still stop the run in addition to containing the passing game. And there are still teams that are going to want to line up and run the football, and it'll be interesting to see how Jim Knowles adjusts to that, if he figures there's enough physicality on the field with the 4-2-5 to be able to do that. So I guess when they get into situations against those kind of power running teams, like a Wisconsin, like Michigan would like to be able to do, then I guess we'll see how it all shakes out.
Yeah, Knowles said that they are putting in that 4-3 package. He talked about Palaie now, Teoche working at the Sam, Reed Carrico working at the Sam, as Steve said. And it's one of these packages that they will have when they need it. He said that he had the package at Oklahoma State, but they never used it because the 12 personnel packages in the Big 12 are more like 11 personnel, where that second tight end is as much a receiver as a tight end. So it's not even really 12 personnel, where here in the Big 10, 12 personnel may mean 6'5", 260-pound tight ends that you are going to have to treat like extra tackles, and you're going to have to be as big on defense and the front seven as you can be. And it's a little bit of a different world.
Michigan and Penn State fans may disagree, but probably the best quarterback wide receiver combinations they've faced in the regular season were Purdue and Michigan State. They gave up nothing until it didn't matter in the second half to either one of those teams.
Well, in Michigan State, they were down a receiver going into the game. Another receiver only played mere minutes, as did the running back. But yeah, on paper, certainly Michigan State had a lot of that there. I mean, Purdue with its quarterback and obviously with David Bell. Well, it'd be interesting to see they have their quarterback back, but no David Bell. I don't think anybody on that roster is going to be 60% of David Bell. You would have liked to think that maybe Penn State would be a team that would kind of be able to get there. I'm really curious to see this year if Sean Clifford holds on to that job. I mean, I understand, you bring a guy back for his 74th year. There are some expectations there, but if Drew Allar has a big spring, I mean, the drumbeat will be loud before game one.
Because you know what you're getting with I just forgot his name, the Penn State quarterback. You know what you're getting. You don't necessarily know what you're getting with Drew Allar. Like, the potential is higher there. I've already moved on from him, and I've moved on to Allar. The
coin.
Yeah. Oh, geez. But I saw that David Bell ran like a 4.68 at his pro day, so that tells me he's not any good. So, he's hopefully going to be a steal for the Bears in like the 6th or 5th round. I'll take it. Sign me up.
Yeah, he can play. There are 2 and 3 guys who are good too, but yeah, not 60%.
All recruited by Ohio State too, like guys that were in the recruiting picture for Ohio State, like Milton Wright was. He was in there, and so they've got some talent. That's something that Jeff Brom is always able to do, and find some passing game, and I'm sure he'll figure it out again this year.
All right, this is our Buckeyes show. We hit you with it every Wednesday, 1:30 Eastern time. That's our goal. But subscribe and hit the bell for the notifications in case we've got to switch up on the scheduling. But these are the 3 that make it happen. You got Steve Hellwagon from Bucknuts. Catch him there on 247 Sports. Of course, Kevin Noon from Buckeye Scoop. And again, the podcast can be found
everywhere.
Spotify, Twitch,
Walmart.
Okay.
Search the Big Meat Kickoff and you'll find it.
Beautiful. And Tony Gerdeman.
Yep, you can find me there too.
All right, guys, appreciate it. You guys make this go. So thanks for doing it.
All right, guys, take care.